A major escalation in the trade war happened today. We're going to go through all that and more in this video. It is just changing on a dime here. So the first thing that I want to get into is what Doug Ford said. But for right now, I want to show you what's happening with the Canadian dollar. Believe it or not, the Canadian dollar versus the US dollar has actually been easier to follow versus actually looking at the headlines, because there's been that many headlines today about different things. And we're going to get into all of that because I think that really what Doug Ford said was extremely risky. And certainly I think with this trade war in general, there's a huge risk that somebody oversteps. And then at what point does the trade war become an actual war? And these politicians, you know, they like to say, we're going to do this, we're going to tariff this, we're going to tariff that, we're going to put an export tax on this. But it's really hurting average people. They don't care. They are not affected by the tariffs. They're not affected by the cost increases. They're not affected, and they're not going to lose their job. So you have to remember that, because politicians will always tell you what you want to hear and not the truth. And that's what I hate about politicians. Trump does it. You know, Pierre does it, and Doug Ford does it too. So we'll get into all of this right now. Let me just play you this clip, and this is what sparked it all off today.
Let me be clear. I will not hesitate to increase this charge. If necessary, if the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely. Believe me when I say I do not want to do this. I feel terrible for the American people, because it's not the American people who started this trade war.
So it's very interesting what he said there. You know, at least he's trying to pretend to be empathetic there towards both people, like Canadians and Americans, because he goes on to say about Canadians too. But what's so interesting about this whole thing is that he says about shutting the power off. And I think that is where, you know, until like an hour ago, and he's since walked that back. So let's get into that and give you that. So Ontario suspends energy tariffs. Ontario has agreed to suspend its 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the US. And, you know, this comes after he was literally saying earlier today that he was going to cut off the electricity altogether. And the thing which was the worst out of all of this was that the White House came out and they said there could be grave consequences for a move like this. And, you know, it's getting that bad. And, you know, okay, things have got better now. They've got slightly better. But are we going to get back to this point? You know, you've got Trump who's saying more tariffs are coming April 2nd. You've still got the tariffs that are in place right now from Canada. You've still got some tariffs from the US. Obviously, he backpedaled on a lot of those tariffs, the ones under the USMCA, the automakers. But it's so interesting what's going on right now. And it's very concerning. It is seriously concerning, because these politicians, both sides of the border, are playing with people's lives. And the uncertainty alone is going to drive millions of workers to be laid off, because quite frankly, how can anybody, I was chatting to a buddy earlier, I was like, how can anybody do business in this environment? Like, it's going to be soon where people are saying, oh, hey, we're just going to have to shut production down because we don't know what's coming next week. We don't know what's coming today. Like, it's hard to keep up. As I said to you, you know, the first thing I knew that something had changed was when the Canadian dollar suddenly rebounded. And, you know, that is how ridiculously hard to follow this thing is. And we still don't know why Doug Ford caved. You know, they're saying, oh, maybe it was to do with the threat of grave consequences. And I was looking in under the US criminal code what constitutes as an act of war. And in the US, it's very vague. So, you know, something like cutting the electricity off to millions of people could be seen as an act of war. It definitely could, because it's a vague, open to interpretation idea in the United States. When you actually look at how it's defined, there is no concrete definition for an act of war. So I think politicians are really playing with fire with this. They're poking the bear. And the thing is, you have to acknowledge, right, that Canada has leverage. Okay, that's one thing. But the United States is a huge beast. It is much bigger than Canada. It can inflict way more pain. I mean, can you just imagine if Canada was cut off from SWIFT? What that would do to the banking system. All the banks would practically collapse overnight. There would be obviously huge implications from something like that. But all of these things, until about an hour ago, were things that were going through my mind like, shit, this could really happen. I'm sorry, profanity is going to come out in this video because fuck, this is just so fucked up, the situation. I just cannot hold back on it. So Ontario slaps 25% tax increase on U.S. electricity. That has been backpedaled. And obviously he was also threatening about how he was going to cut off U.S. electricity. But that has been shelved. Thank God. I mean, it is just absolutely insane what these politicians are willing to do. It's quite frankly scary. And that's what I want to illustrate to you in this video. But a lot of people in Canada, in the United States, you know, if the politician is stood there telling them what they want to hear and what makes them feel good, that's all that matters. But all these politicians care about is fucking optics. It drives me absolutely insane, especially Trump. I mean, Trump is a prime example of somebody who the number one thing he cares about is his approval rating and how he's viewed by his supporters. And it's all about optics with what he does. And, you know, that just drives me insane. And it's the same with all politicians. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse, this escalation. So Delta issues a warning about the economy, slashing its profit forecast in half. So the reason why I'm coming out with this, obviously the US is a bigger economy than Canada. We can all agree of that. And I don't want people going, oh, I don't want to hear about anything from the US. Screw the US. But the thing is, you have to acknowledge one of the biggest airlines in the United States coming out and putting a warning out about the economy is a major red flag. And a lot of this has to do with the uncertainty that is going on right now. But you have to remember what we've been talking about on this channel for a long time is that Canada has been in a recession since 2022. Things have been really ugly in the country, just getting worse and worse and worse. And the US economy was also heading into a recession. This was before Trump took office. This was before all the tariffs hit. And I want you to know that and have that crystal clear in your head, because you're going to be told by politicians, both sides, that, you know, Trump is going to blame it on everything but him. And obviously he is a huge component of the uncertainty right now. And he's certainly going to make a recession even worse. But he's going to blame that on maybe Canada or Mexico or something else, right? It's just going to get blamed on something else. Like everybody in Canada, Mark Carney is probably going to turn around and say, well, you know what? It's the tariffs. That's why we're heading into a recession. I mean, come on. Just look at the housing market. People are burning down houses because that's how badly it's crashing, and they don't want to actually complete on that purchase because they've just been wiped out, like all the equity and everything has just been wiped out and they can't complete. So it's just absolutely insane. And Trump came out, and I'm not sure if he's reversed course on this. This could be what's causing the rally in the Canadian dollar, because the first thing that came out was that he was doubling the tariffs on metal imports. And this was when that prompted the response from Doug Ford to say, well, we might just cut off the electricity. And then the White House came back and said that there would be grave consequences if you did something like that. And it just takes one overstep. And the fact that we're getting this close to the point is somewhat worrying, because obviously there's going to be more of this to come. And you do have the fact that President Trump is saying that he wants Canada to become the 51st state. So you have to take that seriously to a certain extent, because is this what he wants? He's just trying to get Canada into a corner where, to a point where he knows that the politicians are so stupid that one of them will overstep and then they can just move in and annex the country. I mean, it's something that I never thought I would be discussing a few years ago, but it's definitely a scenario that could be the case, or it's all just about the drug war. I mean, the drug war and the fentanyl crisis is killing loads of people in Canada. It's killing loads of people in the United States. And the thing that pisses me off the most about this is, they say right here, Trump's phone is always open. Asked if Trump has yet spoken with Liberal leader Mark Carney, who will soon lead trade war negotiations between Canada and the U.S. as Prime Minister, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said, no, he has not. Certainly his phone is always open, she said. And then the laugh of this, I mean, I just cannot believe it. Leavitt did not answer a follow-up question by a reporter who asked about a timeline for Trump to speak with Carney, given that a sitting president normally speaks to a close ally. And that's the key thing, close ally, in short order after a new leadership is in effect. And that's the thing that these politicians don't want you to realize. Canada and the United States are extremely close. They have interconnected economies. There are so many values that Canadians and Americans both share, and we are very similar in a lot of ways. And, to just try and divide us like these politicians are doing is really wrong. And by dividing us, it makes both sides weaker. And the fact is, it's going to lead to a lot of pain on both sides of the border, as we're seeing. Canada, it looks like, is going to be in a depression by the end of the year. And that might even be actually, they're never going to come out and say it. Let's face it. They're never going to actually call a spade a spade. So anyway, we'll have to continue to see what happens. But that is what Doug Ford said. And I'm just going to do a refresh here to check whether anything else has come out, breaking news about what's going on. Trump on the stock market, looking at Trump looking at backing down on the 50% tariffs on Canada. So there you go. So that is exactly what is probably lifting the Canadian dollar. It may just be temporary with everything else that's going on here, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, certainly there is never a dull moment with everything that's going on. I mean, I cannot believe it. Like 45 minutes ago, I was seriously concerned. I was talking with a buddy of mine, and I was saying, are you really concerned about what's going on right now? Because I'm concerned this might be outright war, which would be just absolutely terrible. And like I said, these politicians are playing with people's lives, and that's the thing that I hate the most about this whole situation is they come out and they say what makes people feel good, but that's not what it's about. Just tell the truth. Just tell the effing truth. That is all that really people on this channel care about. Don't tell us what we want to hear. Don't tell us something just to make us feel good. Tell us the truth. If you're going to shut down power to the U.S. and plunge us into a war, then be real with us. And you might be prepared to die for that, but the majority of Canadians probably not are prepared to sacrifice their families in order for you just to look good and for some people to puff out their chest and say, yeah, we're getting them back there. We're getting them back. It's freaking insane, man. Absolutely insane. Oh, God, I don't know what to make of this, and I've lost where the comments are to even see what's going on in the chat. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this video, highly recommend that you check out that video there. And then if you're looking for a VPN, also want to help out support this channel, go to expressvpn.com/marketmania. Thank you so much for watching and your continued support. See you in the next one.